All right, all right. Who else we have? That's all the questions we have? All right, brother. Yes. All right, because we gonna close it out here. First up, you ready? You got that other mic? And you got yours, or we can use the cordless or the other one, whichever one. But we got a couple of them, so
they can't be on at the same time, though. Right?
I don't know.
So we're just.
Mine's off. I'll wait.
Okay, I apologize. Either I can run back and forth.
No, you know what? Because I like that one better.
All right. Yeah.
So we're just.
We'll use that one. That's that $300 joint. So yeah. All right. You can just say your name, brother, and any affiliation you have or anything.
Greetings. My name is Baron Jamal Musa. I'm with the Islamic Society of Southern Prince George's County. I have two questions. Won't make a speech from the floor. My first question is, I'm still confused about geography. We showed slides and talked about Africa and Arabia being one, and I wanted to know if either of the two speakers could elaborate more on the historical geopolitical construct known as Africa, because I know Mr. Muhammad, the Elijah Muhammad, the founder of the Nation of Islam, taught emphatically that the black man was the Asiatic man, but what my understanding is, he denied Africa as a geopolitical construct altogether. And my second question is that to Brother Mukasa specifically, Brother Wesley showed some slides of impalation, hands being cut off, people being castrated, and you said that there's no such thing as slavery in that language, as if those horrific things we saw would somehow be different. And so when Arabs do something, how are they motivated by Islam? But when people of Kemet, not taking prisoners within Kemet, but go into other countries, do things, are they acting upon their religion, or are they acting upon some other motivation? Thank you.
You want to take the first question?
I can, no problem.
Here you go. You can get from that.
I believe your question directed at me regarded Africa as a geopolitical construct, Arabia to the extent that it may or may not play into that, and this question of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Asiatic black man. If you don't mind, I take the latter first. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad absolutely said that we are the Asiatic black man. But it is critical that we understand that he did not have Asia in mind when he said the Asiatic black man. He was very clear. His geopolitical Asia was distinctly different from the geopolitical Asia in modern maps. Asia, for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, was the totality of the planet, and the point that Honorable Elijah Muhammad was making, and it so needs to be reinforced in this discussion, any discussion with Kemet. The point he was making is the black man's ownership is not restricted from square mileage on the Nile, Indus Valley, or in Mecca. The black man's home and throne is the entirety of the planet, which he said at one time was called Asia. Now, if you look at the 15th, 16th century maps, you have Africa, for example, denoted as East Asia, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said. So he was not making it up that at one time the planet was called Asia. Yeah, you like Pangea. Pangea is one terminology for the pre-continental drift Earth. But the point is, he was not identifying black people with the modern geopolitical construct called Asia. He was identifying black people with the totality of the planet Earth, and he, in my humble opinion, was absolutely right. The geopolitical construct now called Africa, now, in terms of what he said about Africa. He said that the white man, the devil, wants our people to believe that we are all different. That he calls that place Africa, and he did. Africa is a white Eurocentric term. That is a fact. He said that whites called it Africa to make our people think that we are all different and that they are all savages. He wasn't calling them savages. He said that the white man called it Africa so that we over here would think that they are all savages. This was his explanation of the fact, indisputable fact, the white folks called Africa, Africa. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad recognized the geopolitical construct called Africa for what it was, for what it is, a creation of white supremacy. Now, as I turn this over to my brother, as he comments on committed slavery, I suspect this will be part 2 of our discussion.
Right, let's do it again, brother.
Slavery in Maat and slavery in Islam. I love my brother more so. Every time I hear him, I love him and admire him more. There is much that he said that I absolutely agree with. There is slavery in Islam today. And if you are a Muslim who is not enraged at the enslavement of black people in the name of Islam, if you are an apologist for Arab Muslim slavery, you know, brother in the faith of mine, I bang with you, not only on the Arab slavery, but those Muslim romanticists that want to deny or apologize for what's going on in Sudan. We can talk about the Sudan. I came prepared to talk about Darfur, to talk about the Sudan. It must be talked about. But I have to say, beloved, I suggest that my brother is absolutely wrong in his assessment of slavery in Kemet and slavery in Islam. As a student of Medu Nature myself, I affirm that there was absolutely slavery in Islam. I came prepared to get into it nitty gritty, but time was of the essence. So part 2, slavery in Maat and slavery in Islam.
Just real quick, because we have a lot of questions, I'll just respond to his second question. I'm in basic agreement with Brother Wesley's assessment of the first question, that the ancient world, Africans populated the East all the way to Australia and the Pacific Islands. Dr. Runoko Rashidi, he's done a lot of work on that. The African population was not just separated to Africa. You have no argument with me on that point. That's accurate. That's correct. But those were at the same, while they were all African population, you can still see them today. The Dravidians in southern Africa, the people in southeastern Asia. It was many distinct languages. So to just to call them all Asiatic, that's not quite very accurate. I won't belabor the point with that because it's really a minor issue from where I stand. I will say this about Brother Wesley. The Red Sea, though, however, the separation of the Arabian Peninsula from Africa happened before humans. That, you're talking about a geological feature that happened hundreds and maybe even millions of thousands of years ago. It wasn't in the vicinity of human history. But your question, and I do want to say this is important. I don't fault Islam for what Arabs have done. And this is your second question. I don't fault Islam for what Arabs have done. That's not my point. This becomes complicated because if you are a Muslim and you see that the Quran is saying you can enslave people, Are you a Muslim if you don't follow that? Now the Arabs will say that you're not, and they'll enslave you in the process and say that, Brother Wesley, you talking about this Maat Islam stuff, you ain't no Muslim. And
Yes, sir.
This is what
Yes,
the
sir.
Arabs feel about
Yes, sir.
any Africans, such as the ones in the time of Sunni Ali Burr, who choose to hold on to African traditions because they want you and Wesley to wipe yourself of all of your African customs and
Yes,
culture.
sir.
Now, me on the other hand, see, I don't have to wade through Islam or Christianity because I'm going back to the root of that tree. I'm going back to my act.
I don't know what's up with this.
It's all.
I don't know if it's this or what. Oh, okay. I think that works.
That's why.
Yeah, that's why it does that. Okay. You gotta turn it off and turn it back on.
Okay, Sister Maggie,
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you. Peace and blessings to all of you.
Peace and blessing.
I first want to tell you I've been quite overwhelmed by this evening. For one reason is I was looking for more spirituality than I got. And I think in the voice of our mother, both of her sons need some scolding tonight. And
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
going to say that on November the 11th, November the 30th, 2011, the Eve of Womankind was declared. And it seems when our brothers get too busy with all this academics, they do need a sister to come in.
Yes,
it's,
ma'am.
wait
Yes,
a minute,
ma'am.
stop. Let's
Yes,
stop this
ma'am.
right now. These two sons of the sun. Now, Kemet is separate in my research from Maat. Islam was in the beginning very peaceful. Maat is peaceful. So I didn't hear the word misogyny, I hear the word white man, but for me in my research, I got rid of white man for the misogynist. Because the misogynist who hates women, girls, and marriage came in and confused everything
Yes,
for the
ma'am.
purpose of getting rid of natural order, which is paradise.
Yes, ma'am.
Islam,
Yes, ma'am.
okay?
Yes,
Paradise,
Yes, ma'am.
Maat.
Yes, ma'am.
There, you are both the same.
Yes, ma'am.
Paradise. Paradise means the equality of all. That's our spirituality. Amun was against Akhenaten, who believed in one and all. She was chaste and considered the first enemy of the state. And her identity was said to be a man malformed with abnormalities. Why? Because woman was suppressed. She was made the enemy in Genesis 3:15. And so we understand that misogyny needs great healing like we do.
Yes,
Peace.
yes, ma'am. Peace.
Anybody want to take that? Okay, all
I
right.
humbly accept your choning or sconing.
All right, all right. Let's give it up for the next Watotos. Come on, bring it. Bring the knowledge, bro.
Hotep, my name is Adigu John, and I wanted to ask a question. What does Wat mean?
What does what mean?
Wat,
Spell what you're saying.
W-A-A-T.
What?
Yes.
Maat or white?
Wow. Y'all hear why we actually know why it is the actual place. But I wasn't sure. He asked me the question. I wasn't here. So now y'all to ask y'all.
What? W-A-W-A-T.
I told him maybe you met my
Go ahead. It's on.
whatever the case, and y'all, since he's up there, and y'all explain to him how.
All right, and I'm sorry, go ahead, brother.
Regardless if, you have what is considered an African traditional spiritual belief, or you have a Christian belief. We are all one people. We are all getting oppressed and exploited. Regardless, they not having debates with us about none of these things. We're not staying united on that.
Definitely.
Said it. He said it.
Appreciate what was said. It's not coming on.
You gotta hold it in, but we'll go to, I'll use this. We'll go to it came on there.
Maat, I mean, of course, it just simply means truth. Now, people will try to codify it, say it's truth, justice, righteousness, reciprocity, harmony, balance, and order. That's fine, but in order to gain deep meaning of Maat, you have to go to the text. And as the elder said, concerning seeking spirituality, I think we both share a lot about spirituality, quote-unquote religion. But with Maat in particular, you go to the text to understand it. You can memorize 7 virtues, that's fine, that's a start, but you gotta go to the ancient text, you have to read the text. And also, as I said, you know, I want you to leave out of here, as Brother Wesley said, and be enraged about any type of oppression, and organize and do something about it. Organize within your communities, whether it's oppression out of the White House, which we still have, even though it's a Negro in office. I'm gonna marinate in that for a second, because I couldn't say this 4 years ago. It says Negro in the White House. I know you're talking about Obama. He's come to save us. He's the one. He's the dream realized. Or whether it's oppression in the Sudan, or whether it's oppression in Afghanistan, wherever it's at. Oppression is wrong. As African people, we should stand against it.
We're gonna just use this mic just to kind of keep it going.
Hotep, my name is Nada Jordan, and I have a question.
All right.
Was most African names was by animals?
Say that again.
What?
Come on, sister. Come on now. You get
Was
it.
most African names what? I'll tell you what. You got it? You got it? I'll tell you what, go talk to him, and we'll get you right back in here. You get your question totally
Good
together.
try, sister.
Good try, yes. We'll, she can get right here. She can come next. All right, go ahead.
Okay, I got a question for Brother Mukasa. I'm Brother Gary. I just wanted to know, I heard you mention Maat as the tree a couple of times, as the tree, and I was wondering what makes it more than just a part of the African tradition? Like, what makes it be the source and not? And the other one was, you mentioned hadith. After Dr. Wesley was saying that the hadith that were being referred to was falsified. And you came back with it and continued to repeat that. And I wanted to know, did you have knowledge and that's why you repeated it? Or did you just want to continue to beat the drum?
Well, I like drums. I like I guess I'll deal with the second one first. Brother Wesley, I mean, of course, you know, he's much more informed than I am on the hadiths and the Quran and the history of the Quran and the history of the hadiths. I think we're both in agreement that it's been things added over time. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
It's been things added over time, which is the point that I was making. My other point was that it's contradictions in the Quran, it's contradictions in the Bible. The question that I tried to ask, maybe it wasn't clear, is can you be a Muslim if you don't accept the whole Quran? Or can you be a Christian if you don't accept the whole Bible? The Bible talks about prostitution and slavery and robbery and theft, and you know, it says, you know, don't kill on the one hand and then you got killing on the other hand. You know, if you point out those contradictions and you say, okay, I don't believe that, but I'm Christian, does that make you still Christian? If you say, well, James was a degenerate pervert and a sadomasochist, King James I'm talking about, and Shakespeare too, and you don't acknowledge the good word of God, you know, are you no longer Christian? So that's kind of the point that I was trying to make. But your Your other question, which I don't remember now, what was your other question?
Maat being the like the root.
Precedence. And actually, I'm saying, Kemet is not the root. Kemet is part of the root, but Kemet comes from the quote-unquote barbarian civilization. The cultures of Africa moved up and down. Comparatively, you're talking about over 3,000 years ago. All right, several thousand years ago before Islam. They try to say that the Hebrews built the pyramids. Pyramids are 1,000 years old when Abraham was born. They were over 1,000 years old when Abraham was born. So then they say, well, slaves built it. The Abraham face. So we have to respect the floor. If you have a question, you can get in line. It's not a problem. That's just out of respect for myself.
Let's stay respectful, family.
And I know a lot of what we're saying kind of invites that, the controversy and disagreement. But, and I welcome disagreement. Don't get me wrong. I do welcome.
With protocol.
So with that, I'll actually leave there. But my point is, as I said in the beginning, I'm not attacking Islam. I'm not attacking Christianity. I'm attacking oppression that religion has been used to justify, and it has. I'm not ignoring the wars and the slavery. It has happened, and there has been wars in Kemet. But Kemet and Nubia had a different type of relationship. Sometimes they were in alliance against foreigners, and sometimes they fought against each other. But they were both African. So Wes, I don't know if you want to respond to that or not.
Quickly, if I can. I just want to make this quick point. First, I have to say this. All of Brother Mukasa's critiques against Islam are absolutely legitimate. They are well-founded. They must be taken seriously by Muslims more so than non-Muslims. This thing with slavery, I just want to highlight this point. The Quran does sanction slavery, as did Maat. See, I had a whole thing, but we'll get in part two. But so you got Brother Mukasa cited a Quranic verse in which Allah okays the institution of slavery among humans. We will talk about why. I showed one, but I got many more images of the God receiving the slaves. The gods of Maya, Amun Ra, Ptah, I got them. And they were receiving the booty, the spoils of war. So you compare a Quranic verse giving the begrudging okay for an institution that was already in existence. Compare that to imagery of the God itself receiving the captives turned slaves. POWs were invariably made slaves of the temple of Amun and Karnak. Got all the documentation. So, yes, slavery in the Quran, don't apologize for it. Don't act like it don't exist there. We need to understand why it's in the Quran, what's sanctioned. But I just find that interesting. Please, as you reflect on the Quranic verse about human slavery, reflect on the Maitic imagery of the God himself receiving the slaves.
All right. Are you ready, sweetheart? All right, here we go. Come on.
Hotel, my name is Nadada Jordan, and I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Was most African deities named by animals?
Oh, good question.
Was most African deities named by animals?
No, not named by animals. I thought you said named by Africans.
Named by Africans? Most African deities named by Africans.
But even that first question is understandable. I can see why she would ask that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Good
Well,
question.
I want to say I appreciate your question. It's a very good question. You must get straight A's in school. You must do all of your homework. You must do very good in school. So if I can answer that very good question, African deities were named by Africans, yes. And some of them were, they were called Netchers or Orishas in West Africa, or Abosum. They were representative of aspects of nature. Like Ogun was the Orisha of iron, and so he also represented war. Or then you had, say, Geb, for instance. He was the natural spirit of the earth. He represented the earth. And I showed Nut, was female. A lot of the deities are female, like yourself, goddesses like yourself. So Nut, she represented the sky. Sekhmet was the lion. So she was represented as a deity, the protective forces of the sun that would protect the people and would, burn the enemies. So you had male deities and you had female deities, and you had deities named after aspects of nature. But those deities were not the great creator. It was just one creator. It was one creator, and then you had the deities. In other religions, they have jinn or they have angels. But give that sister a hand, y'all. Give this sister a hand.
Hotep.
My name is Brian. I represent Pan-African Liberation Movement, also a member of the ACT study class, also a facilitator of the Urban Youth Initiative Project, which is one of our Ndadas who came up and asked that question. I have two questions. One for you, Brother Wesley Muhammad, and one for you, Brother Musa. Thank you. The question I have for you, Brother Wesley Muhammad, is when you were quoting the facts that you were quoting, and you had made mention of the usurp or the Aryanized Arab Islam, and the quote of you using the brother, and you had used a lot of references from Europeans who couldn't even, decipher Medu Neter without coming upon the Rosetta Stone. And in doing so, I felt like you had kind of related the point that you had used with him when they are used to disclaim or disfame African spirituality, not having a true sense or understanding of it. So the question is, I never heard the mention of the Hyksos, and what role did they play in why Upper Kemet and Lower Kemet were united by King Menes the First. And the question for you, brother, the term Asiatic, I heard you make a lot of mention of Milana Karenga today, and he has a book which was forwarded by one of your great scholars, the one that you say you directly had contact with or influence under Dr. Carruthers, the Hosea. And it's a passage in the Hosea, I can't remember specifically where, but it says, "Woe the lowly Asiatic." And the term Asiatic is used a lot, as the brother made reference to, as encompassing the whole earth. And that it's you being a scholar or study of Medu Neter, why was the term "woe the lowly Asiatic" if they use the term Asiatic? Next question.
I actually have a PowerPoint presentation for your question, because I anticipated it. Let me say this. As I've said over and over again, I'm going to say the bibliography from the list of references for my presentation will be up on my blog site, blackarabia.blogspot.com. And you will see that I use black scholars, I use white scholars, but even by saying that, it hurts my tongue. Because that's so, with due respect, that's so asinine to me. As a scholar from the academy who is big on methodology, that question and implications of it is quite frankly asinine. Scholarship is not black or white. Scholarship is good methodology or bad methodology. I use good white sources. I use good black sources. Now, Drusilla Houston, I got in this one chapter of wonderful Kushites of the Ethiopian civilization. In one chapter, I got 7 white sources. John Henry Clark, one chapter of Critical Lessons of Slavery and the Slave Trade. Not only 7 white sources, but as I've demonstrated in a recent post on my Facebook, some of those sources are bad sources that he should not have used. In Africa, mother of Western civilization, Dr. Ben not only uses white sources, but he constantly suggests to readers, go out and get these white sources. There is not a single scholar, including Brother Mukasa. Why didn't you ask Brother Mukasa, why you use those white sources, Brother Mukasa? Brother Mukasa used white sources. Brother Wesley used white sources. So what? I use good, qualified sources. It's not a single black scholar that one might want me to quote that didn't use white sources. I have a lecture prepared called Afrocentric Scholars and Their Good White Sources. So, I hope this goes out, because I'm going to start not answering, with due respect, I love you, but, and this isn't to you, but, you know, this is because, you know, I get that so much. And I'm going to stop answering that. So I'm going to make this a YouTube clip and set it out, and I will never answer that question again. I use good sources. Every author I use, I can tell you their qualification. See, a lot of people, they just get books. They don't know who these people are. If it says something they like, they put it up. No, I can tell you about every one of the sources I use, black and white. I can tell you why I use them. And every one of them have strengths, and every one of them have weaknesses, including the black ones. John Henry Clark has weaknesses in some of his scholarship. Chancellor Williams has weaknesses in some of his scholarship. Dr. Ben has weaknesses in some of his scholarship, and I've documented it. That doesn't mean, but I still use them. They are good, but the black ones are no different than the white ones. They are good. There's good in their scholarship. There's suspect aspects of their scholarship. Take the good, justify why you use that scholar you use in light of the good and bad, and I can do that with every single scholar I quoted. Yeah, I quote white ones, I quote black ones. I will continue quoting white ones, I will continue quoting black ones, and I don't care about their disinterest in African liberation. I don't pick scholars, I don't pick facts based on where if somebody who's presenting it love black people. Ideological commitment, however noble that commitment may be, tends to skew scholarship. So I'm not mad that they don't have necessarily a commitment. Some of our pro-black committers, that has skewed their scholarship. It is. All ideological commitments make us pray to that. So because some white scholar don't have an ideological commitment to black folk, I don't care nothing about that. Huh? If it's good scholarship, if they got the credentials, I read them. I don't take anything hook, line, and sinker, whether they black or white. I critique white scholarship, I'm critiquing our black scholarship. So I will never answer that question again. I love you, brother.
I love you too, brother. I think you was answering.
But then I probably made myself a liar because I may answer it next week. I'm going to try to never answer that question again.
All right, good question. Appreciate your question. I just want to correct one thing. Mina or Menez was that's the first unification.
Yes,
first
sir.
dynasty,
Yes, sir.
first unification. And you were referring to the third unification of the 18th dynasty, second and Ratayo.
Yes, that's
great. Just a small correction with that. Second in Ratayo, he started the war against the Hyksos, who had controlled Kingdom from 15th to the 17th dynasty. Some people say 200 years, some people say 400 years. See differences on the time frame. But he started the war against the Hyksos, and they tried to say that he was white. And looked at his skull, his cold black African, African features and everything. His son, Kalmos, would die in the war, the Great War of Liberation. And Amos would take up the war. And he, Second in Ratayo initiated the war, Amos continued the war, and it was passed down from one generation to the next, finally to Jehudi Mesu III, who said, why are we waiting for our enemy to come to us? So he got his troops, he got his army behind him, he got in front of the army on horse, and he said, we go to them. And he not only said that, he said, we go by way of the best road, the quickest road to get there, whether it is a treacherous road or a vulnerable road. And they said, you know, Naisu, we can't go that way. We're vulnerable if we take that road. He said, no, that's the road to glory. It's the rough road, but it's the road to glory. He would go on and he would, Megiddo or Armageddon, he would conquer. He conquered 1,000 cities. He was one of the greatest conqueror in ancient history. That's Jehudi Mesu.
I forgot the knowledge. Thank you, brother. Minister Carlos Muhammad, he's the minister of Muhammad's Palace. Go get that brother. Let me just acknowledge him. I apologize. Bring him back in here. Let me just acknowledge him before you leave. Real fast. And that's the last one in the line. That's the last one in the line. Let me just. Okay. All right, sister. All right. He left. All right. Yeah, man, he must have broke out of there. Okay, but that's Brother Mr. Carlos Muhammad, where you will be tomorrow, 11 o'clock, brother?
Yes, sir. 11? 11 o'clock, yes, sir.
All right.
Yes,
So,
sir.
hope you all can show up and get some more tomorrow. All right.
Greetings, brother. I appreciate you all taking the time to come out.
Appreciate you coming out, beloved.
Thank you. Because it's definitely a conversation we need to have. And it's always unfortunate to me that when we have lectures, forums like this, that it's not full, because we'd rather be at the club doing everything else versus focusing on us. I had a couple of Christian friends who wanted to come, but when I told them there wouldn't be a Christian representative, they got turned off because, oh, here we go with this blackness. And so I appreciate that you all can disagree.
Yes, sir.
Disagree agreeably.
Yes, sir.
And so, but I find that some of my Christian friends, oh, here we go. I don't want to, it's not about this world, and it's a whole different ideology. So I guess my question to either one of you, how do we, I guess we just have to, the people, those of us that are concerned have to come together. But I find that, they should be able to have a Christian representative, Jewish representative, whatever your faith is, it shouldn't sway you from the common goal that we're all oppressed. Like the brother said, we're all oppressed. So I guess my question is, are we able to bridge those differences? I hope that nobody was offended, that they leave and go, oh yeah, he was talking that stuff, but versus listen and gain knowledge. So I guess my question is, how do we overcome our individual differences to come together? Because some people, ideologically, they don't want to hear it. So.
Good question.
Thank you for the question. I think we are. I think we and us are demonstrating the reality of that. Brother Mukasa and myself have some very strong disagreements, but our agreements are much more strong. And we, from the beginning of this event to this moment, it has been love and unity. It is a reality. Black folks can disagree without being disagreeable. The so-called conscious community can do it right. There's been a lot of these, and all of them ultimately went wrong. Even the ones I was a part of, they went wrong. But we see it can happen. That's a problem with religious folk. I have a little low patience for religious folk too, for that very reason. We aren't able to transcend our personal religiosity for the bigger cause. But I think it is done. It has been done. It can be done. I think this event is showing that it can be done. Before I turn it over, I want to say this to my brother. I was wrong. My sincere apologies. I should not have answered your question like that. I owe you a better delivery of my answer. And so I apologize to you, beloved. My delivery was based on frustration with constantly getting that question, but you had nothing to do with that. You were not aware of that. So you should not have been on the receiving end of my frustration with that. So I did not answer your question in the most brotherly manner. For that, I apologize.
Yes, my question is for Brother Wesley. You showed the pictorial evidence of slaves in Kemet. Brother Mukasa said that there is no word in the Medu for slave. I was wondering if you had any linguistic evidence of the term slave from Medu.
Absolutely. I have a whole slideshow presentation I have prepared to give it, but on part 2, slavery in Maat and Islam, the totality of it will be presented. I will say this. I recommend Brother Mukasa and everyone interested. You can't buy this at a store, but if you're connected with the library, you can order it through interlibrary loan and run a copy. Slavery in Pharaonic Egypt. The doctoral dissertation, Oxford doctoral dissertation from Abdel Mohsen Fakir. He specifically analyzed the very question of slavery in Pharaonic Egypt. Every single relevant term, a minute etymological study was done. It's the various occurrences in the available Medu texts were analyzed. And in my presentation, I have him, I have Red, and I have Ishru. We're going to go through all of them. And it is absolutely the case that there was indentured servitude in Kemet, and the pyramids weren't built by slaves. There's corvée labor, absolutely correct. But there's absolutely slavery in the truest sense in Kemet. And the terminology, we're going to look at the terminology in part 2. There was real and real brutal slavery in Kemet. My strongest criticism of Brother Mukasa's presentation is this issue of slavery, both in Islam. I believe my brother doesn't understand slavery in Islam, the Eastern Mafia, except very shallowly. I believe there was a de-emphasizing of slavery in Maat and an over-emphasizing of slavery in Islam. There's slavery in both, and we need to assess dispassionately the reality of slavery in Maat and Islam, and hopefully in the future we can do so. So absolutely, there is terminology. I gotta start on him. Yeah, we need to, we're gonna deal with him. Sometimes him means servant, but in many documented cases, it means slave. A perfect example, the Arabic abd, A-B-D, it means slave, but when it's Abdullah, it means servant of God. Him means slave, but when it's him that church, it means servant of God, priest. Him and abd have the exact same semantic field. And while they both can have a soft meaning, servant, in most cases they have a very hard meaning, slave. And we can document, not only by Kid's thesis, I have tons and tons of the evidence. There was real and real brutal slavery in Kemet in the name of Amun, in the name of Ptah, in the name of Heru.
All right, sister, here we go.
I would just like to remind everybody that it's the same God, different names.
Yes, ma'am.
The Most High's children on earth trying to debate who or what religion was ancient when we're ancient people.
Yes, ma'am.
You have Ishmael at Maatins. You have Esau at Jacob, vying to be first. When the real thing is that the enemy of all of us is this capitalistic, economic rat race of a system that produced slavery. So if we are going to be slaves and servants, at least be a slave and servant trying to bring back the brotherly love and the sisterly love that we had before all of this happened.
All right, thank you.
All right. Brother.
Hotel. Salaam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
My name is Kadir Amari. Facebook, you can catch me at F Radio.
Yes, sir.
The original Earths Were Black.
Yes,
Brother
sir.
Wesley puts a lot of information out. I just want to quote your book, Brother Wesley, and I just want you to expand on this real fast. Thank you, bro. In terms of, it says, page 208, according to the, except the Islamic breakthrough, Europe has ruled Africa down to the present day. This is an important observation, especially when we keep in mind that the breakthrough was a black Islamic breakthrough. The establishment of the black Islamic empire followed on the heels of the demolishing of the Byzantine and Sasanian empires in West Africa, Asia and Africa. In other words, black power replaced white power on the world stage, and the agents of this transition were black Muslims from Arabia, overthrowing the Byzantines in North Africa, the Muslims. So, as Brother Mukasa said about the 25th dynasty that came and gave back the pharaohs and put, Kemet back on the throne, could you expand on the black power that was brought back by the black Arabs to Africa and that gave, blackness is shine again? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Let's note that the beginning of your quote from my book was me quoting somebody. That first quote was a quote of somebody, and that's critical. The statement that except for the Islamic breakthrough, Europe has ruled Africa for hundreds of years. That quote is from Sheikh Anta Diop. Sheikh Anta Diop acknowledges that Europe ruled Africa for centuries except during the Islamic breakthrough. That Islamic breakthrough busted up temporarily white supremacy, white rule over Africa. That breakthrough was a black power breakthrough. I have demonstrated, as has others, Tariq Berry, Dana Manish, that the so-called Muslim conquests were black power conquests. They toppled the edifice of white supremacy that had been in existence for centuries. There are two pillars of white supremacy, the Byzantine and the Sasanian, the Roman and the Persian pillars of white supremacy. It was black Arabs, Africans in Arabia, African Arabians or Afrabians who erupted out of Arabia in the name of Allah that broke that power base. The African Arabians who invaded North Africa, Egypt in particular, they specifically overthrew the Greeks, and they had a policy. They distinguished the Copts from the Rum. They would kill the Romans, and collaborate and spare the Copts, and the Copts assisted them. I got all the documentation. The Copts, the black Muslims, they kicked the Romans out of Egypt. Brother Mukasa has a blog on the Arab invasion of Egypt, in which he makes the point, quoting from Dr. John Henry Clark, who also makes the point, which I say both of them are equally wrong, though I love both equally, that the Muslims who replaced the Romans in Egypt were as abusive of the Copts as the Romans were. That is absolutely wrong, and it's documented that the black Arabs re-empowered the Copts in Egypt, built churches. The time will come when the Muslims in Egypt will turn against the Copts, but that's after the Aryanization of Islam. It was the Turks who turned on the Copts. But during the period before Islam was usurped by whites, the Arabs were friendly and were empowering not just to the Copts but to Nubia. I have a whole thing about the Ba'ath, the so-called Ba'ath arrangement. And it is myth perpetuated by Dr. John Henry Clark as well because of the sources he relied on. The myth of the Ba'ath, the agreement between Muslim Egypt and Christian Nubia that supposedly began the slave trade to the Muslims. That myth, the aggressiveness, Muslim Egypt to Nubia and Muslim Egypt to the Copts, began after whites had usurped Islam. But absolutely, the black Arabs, the Rashidun and during the Umayyad period, empowered the Copts in Egypt. Got it all documented. Can go point by point. The data is clear. What people do is not what, and I'm going to close on this. Dr. Mario Beatty has a very important lecture on the conflict between Kemet and Nubia. And he makes this very critical point that most people disrespect periodization in dealing with Kemet. They don't respect the fact that something happened in one period, there's a different period and different circumstances in the earlier period as the mix-up placing the Hyksos in the time of King Menes. To disrespect the periodization of Islam in its relationship with Africa is equally problematic. 18th century, 19th century slave trade was nothing like the 10th century Muslim involvement in slavery. Nothing. But what we do and Brother Mukasa has done it, is project the events of the 18th and 19th century and make it a 1400-year thing. Project the antagonism between Turkish Muslim Egypt and Nubia of the 14th century and project that back to the 7th and 8th century. And that is wrong. So yes, that was a black power movement that enfranchised, empowered the Copts in Egypt until they were disenfranchised themselves. Thank you.
Right. I just want to respond briefly because I know time is escaping us. Just brief response. Africans don't wait for anybody to come to freedom. Be it in North Africa, Egypt, Central Africa. We've produced some of the greatest warriors, some of the greatest warrior people in human history. And I'm going to tell you about one particular warrior. It's called the Mosquito in Central Africa. One of the persons he had to war against was Tibu, Black Arab. So we can talk about the black Muslims that fought against Europeans and that fought against Christians, but can't excuse those black Arabs and Arabs who enslaved Africans.
Right, no we can't.
So speaking about periodization, we can't just say that, you know, that Islam has been benevolent to Africa. That the converts of Islam that has been peaceful converts and through trade.
No,
in many of the cases, yes, absolutely it has. In all parts of Africa. But you can't excuse the fact that it's been forceful conversion as well. That many of these communities converted because villages and communities next door to them had been burned to the earth.
Yes, sir.
All of the women and children had been taken out, and the men castrated and murdered.
Yes, sir.
In Congo, you had the Belgians, when they went into the Congo, the Africans had already been completely devastated by Tibu and the Black Arabs. The Belgians would fight against the Arab slave trade to take control of it. So we're speaking about, you know, black Muslims who, yes, in some instances fought against European Christians. In Belgian Congo, it's collaboration. The black Muslims collaborated with the Belgians against the Africans. So you also have those instances. So it's a dynamic history. I'm gonna agree with my brother on that. I'm gonna disagree with him on the fact that within the periodization, it's a whole lot that can be. It's a whole lot that we have to discuss. Right. So I'm gonna leave it with that because I know we are running out of time. I don't know if we're taking the next question.
All right. All right, if you can hold that for us. All right, greetings, Dr. Wesley Muhammad. Presentation was very well, and I respect the scholarship. My name is Sanjeti Ankara. Okay, I'm also a researcher as well. Also one of the students of Ankh Mira. He authored a book called Let the Ancestors Speak. And I started with him about 10 years ago. He's an ancestor now, so I'd like to give him respect. Now, you mentioned a couple of things. I want to run through a couple of corrections really fast. This word hem or home, which is the correct pronunciation, it can be translated as servant. However, the connotation is more like employee or butler or maybe a maid.
No, sir. I respect that, but I'm saying,
and I am willing to discuss that with you further, since we are speaking about linguistics and philology, etc.
And we're gonna get into it when we do part 2. We're gonna get into. So I ask you, well, now him, hold that. Come to part 2, and we're gonna get in it.
All right.
That's gonna be put to bed.
All right.
That romanticism is gonna be put to bed. Okay,
now,
I'm sorry,
with that saying, the prisoners of war that was depicted, that did happen. Okay, so people being forced into labor as a result of war, yes, you are correct on that. But those people were not called hen.
Absolutely, they were. Got the documentation.
Okay. All right. Now, something else real quick. Someone mentioned about Maat, why is it the tree, etc. Maat is all of Africa because of the zootype. The zootype is animal symbol. Zoo, animal. Okay. Is the feather, the ostrich feather, and ostrich is found throughout sub-Saharan Africa. And that's where the symbol comes from. It does not come from Kemet. So it shows that it is an African concept all over. So it's not just in Kemet, okay? So that's why we say that Maat is the tree, because indeed the zoo type symbol that started with it, along with being a black woman, is in Africa to this day. Okay, all right, now for my questionnaire here. Now, I did critique some of your work about the Badarians, etc., but I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. If the Arabians civilized Kemet, and we know when people go from one place to another, they bring their culture and they bring their ideals with them. Okay, so if that is true, then why is it not reflected in Old Kingdom Medu Neter? And when I say Old Kingdom, referring about 4000 BCE. You do not see any outside glyphs or symbols. They're all sub-Saharan symbols, and this can be clearly demonstrated. That's that last part. I did get information suggesting that Ra comes from Arabia. Now,
I took care of that. I straightened.
Okay. I'm just going to run something down real fast. Well, Akkadian, Shamash, Arabic, Shams, but all throughout Africa, this word Ra is there. But you do not find it as a primary term in Semitic languages. So I would like to know, how would that be accounted for?
You had a list. So I will address as much as I can without making this another lecture, because incidentally everything you asked I have about 7 or 8 slides on. I will start with, again, we got that thing about the him and the slave. That's wrong. And we gonna put that to bed. The him, in most cases, absolutely slaves. And the prisoners of war, their fate was slavery, and in most cases slavery in the Karnak temple of Amun, not indentured serf. They were branded. They were branded. They were forced to adopt the Egyptian language. Talk about a slave language. They were given an Egyptian name, not unlike Toby from Kuta Kinte. Oh yeah, we gonna deal with it all. I wish we agreed to 2 hours. But in any case, so we gonna put that to bed. That romanticism is gonna die, or I'm gonna die killing it. Kemet. You know, we keep saying that. You know, Kemet is the tree, and I respect that, but there is absolutely no data to prove that. See, you gotta be real meticulous with our methodology. I know we like to say that, but there is no data that justifies the claim that what appears earlier in one location and what is similar to it, but it appears later in another location. You have to follow strict methodological guidelines before you can say that B derived from A. And I declare that no one who has made that claim has ever provided the necessary data and argument to derive the latter from the present. You cannot just say, well, because one is earlier than the other, then the later came from the earlier. No, you can't do that. You have to demonstrate the plausibility that the direction of derivation could only be one way. In this Badarian thing, I've been misrepresented. I appreciate the critique, but both of you misrepresented my discussion of the Badarians. Especially comparing it to the alien hypothesis. Wow. I'm hurt. I absolutely did not say in Black Arabia. that Kemetic civilization is an Arabian civilization. I was very clear that dynastic Egypt derived from the South, the African South. The point I made, and I make it today, it is irrefutable that Southern African Kemet, over the course of its time, from pre-dynastic to later, absolutely received immigrants from Arabia, and those immigrants influenced aspects of the development of Kemetic culture. That is absolutely the fact. I can stand there is all of the biological proof of this. There is the dental proof of this. There is the linguistic proof of that. And I challenge anyone who would say Kemet's development was a hermetically sealed development in the Nile Valley, that nothing, it received no influence from the outside world. You're a romanticist and cannot support that romanticism with even the slither of evidence. Kemet, I declare, Maat, and Islam are not son and father. They are siblings. And I declare that if you want to continue making the case that Islam is a child of Kemet, I'm going to be on you with this methodological whip. Prove it. Give me the data that compels you to derive B from A. Don't just point because they were similar and different time periods. No, I'm going to be on you with this methodological whip. It doesn't happen. The evidence allows us to say they are siblings from the same parent, and they are both African. And I don't mind, I don't say you, in order for you to be African, you need to accept my piece of blackness. See, Maat is only a piece of Africanness. It is only, and see, that's a method of, with due respect, that last point you made, because Maat is a feather and there's some commonality in Africa, that means Maat is Pan-African? No. You find common symbolism across the globe. Because Maat is more, let's be real clear, Maat is more than a feather. Maat is more than a concept truth. If that's the case, then I can say Islam is all over Africa. Islam means peace, and in every African language you go in, you can find the concept of peace. On that logic, then Islam really is African. But that's bad methodology. You can't make that claim. Maat is, as it's articulated in Kemet, it's more than just a concept of truth. They got temples involved. They got gods. They got obligations to the gods from the priests in the community. See, that's Maat. And I'm saying that that is a piece of Africa. Islam is a piece of African. And how dare anybody try to tell me that I have to accept your piece of Africa or I'm not African? Trying to impose your piece of Africa on me. That's like me trying to impose my piece of Africa on you. Both Islam and Maat, they're both pieces of Africa. I respect Brother Mukasa, I respect you, I respect anybody who is their piece of Africa. But I'll be damned if I'm gonna let you impose your piece of Africa on me as if yours is the only Africa. You know what they say? Forgive, but I can't help it. Give a nigga an inch, he won't take a mile.
Brother Mukasa wanted to, just briefly.
610, correct me if I'm wrong, Brother Wesley. 610, Muhammad received the first revelations of the Quran.
Yes, sir.
622, that's first year of Hijrah.
Yes, sir.
That's the calendar, the Islamic calendar begins.
Yes, sir.
Anybody can tell me when Maat began? Anybody? It's no beginning. It's that ancient. It's pre-dynastic. So if we're gonna say that that it's a start to this particular religion of Islam, but Maat is so ancient that it cannot be dated. As your evidence. There's one's child, one's, I'm not going to say father, I'm going to say mother, because we're talking about female divinity here. Now, Brother Wesley critiqued me, rightly so. He said that I cannot project the 19th century Arab slave trade onto the 10th century Arab slave trade, because there was a difference. There absolutely was. I'm going to agree with him. But the Arab slave trade was occurring centuries before the European slave trade. So whereas it was, I'm going to say a trickle, as some people say, because it was happening, people were being kidnapped and taken out of villages and homes and castrated and raped and enslaved. It would be heightened in part because of the competition with the European slave trade. So they both existed. So his critique is that I cannot project the 19th century Arab slave trade, in which several millions of Africans were kidnapped by the Arabs, onto the 10th, 9th, 8th, 7th century Arab slave trade, or even the pre-Islamic Arab slave trade. Because the Arabs were enslaving Africans before Islam. They used Islam to justify their enslavement. But I have to also critique him, because if I'm not mistaken, what I just heard was him projecting the European slave trade on Kemet. When you speak of Africans being enslaved in temples and being whipped or whatever, that kind of really didn't happen. The temples were, there were priestesses in the temples. The children sat and they learned and they studied. These were sacred grounds, sacred places. He says that, and he's right, that slaves did not build the pyramids, but it was Europeans who projected the European slave trade. They looked at the pyramids and said, oh, look at these monuments. Slaves must have built them, because they came from a society where it was slave labor that produced the gifts of that society. The Industrial Revolution happened because of this, the slave agricultural system in this country. So they looked at the Great Pyramids, they said, oh, this couldn't have been paid labor. These must have been slaves, must have been Jews, the chosen people. Must have the Jews. And Cecil B. DeMille's, I think 1956 Ten Commandments, it just solidified that. That's, it wasn't 56 on, that's when people really started talking about Jews building the pyramids. But as Brother Wesley said, it wasn't. We have the graves and homes of these people. They were upper middle class. But we can't project United States slavery onto Kemet. Now, was some people held in bondage? I'm sure it was. But it was not a basis for the civilization. It was absolutely not a basis. Those were paid.
Well, I agree with that.
It was not a basis for the civilization.
Absolutely agree.
And people were not being systematically kidnapped and lynched and raped and burned and tortured. That's the peculiar institution of slavery in this world, and also Arab slavery as well. But as I said, we can disagree on these. We can have these disagreements. Again, I'm not trying to convert anybody to anything.
Right.
But I'll leave you with this: that as Africans, we need to be active. We need to be active.
Yes, sir.
We need to educate our children. We need to give them a culture and an education that's befitting of their ancestors. It's from their ancestors. We need to be serious about doing community work. We need to be serious about the economics in our community. And on the topic of being activists, which I had said earlier, I'm giving you all a reason to be active. This Arab slave trade still exists, and as Brother Wesley said, whether you're Muslim or not, you should be enraged. We are in agreement on that. People are being held in slavery. We need to reach out to our continent, our mother continent, and we need to not only help them, but see, how we can build a mutual relationship, whether be it political or otherwise. And I'm gonna say we need to do that because not only do you have Arabs in Africa, you have Europeans, you have the Chinese. Y'all heard about how all these Asians, these Chinese, they buying up all of the roads and bridges, opening up stores. And, you have in Africa, you have people hungry and I mean, now I'm not trying to generalize and say this is how it is in all of Africa, but you have land everywhere. There's no reason for anybody to be hungry, and then you have these foreigners come and open up businesses and stuff. There should be a textile industry. As Dr. Clark said, there should be, with all of the land and the wheat being grown, there should be an African cereal being sold throughout the world. But here we are eating Kellogg's and Frosted Flakes. So we have a lot of work to do.
Yes, sir.
We have very serious work. I hope that we're all clear, as I said, that we are Africans, because I'm not having that debate. But we need to
yes, sir.
have disagreements so that we can grow. I think everybody has learned something.
Yes,
because
sir.
we could sensibly disagree.
Yes, sir.
Whether we move or not, whether you learned something from me or not.
I did. Much.
We can all grow and learn in our discourse. We
Yes,
do
sir.
need to get back to that. We're not like pulling out guns and stuff because we're disagreeing. Have a disagreement, but let's grow from it. Give thanks.
All right, this brother had a quick question. You gotta be quick, bro.
It's going to be very quick.
All right.
The definition of Maat is divine order on a cosmic and social scale. Taking that definition into consideration, that's the definition that your authorities, Egyptologists, use for Maat. Okay, my question is, should there be a national or global Maat policy today to address the socio-economic, environmental conditions?
Yeah, good question.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm going to say yes. Good, very good question. Because otherwise we're just talking about antiquities. What does it mean for the present? What does it mean for now? I had said that, one of the things with European culture and civilization is a destruction of the environment. So yeah, we need to take my view of the world and consider how we can give back to the earth and not just constantly take. I know this is a short answer, but I absolutely feel so. Yes.
I agree. Absolutely.
All right, that's it, brothers and sisters. We thank you all for coming out. And next time, I got the word by Carlos Muhammad. We're going to do a part 2 at Baltimore City Community College. Where's Bond? All right. Let's give it up, brother. Thank you all.